Stop hunting. Start finding. Choose the AT&T Real Yellow Pages with complete ads and up-to-date local listings to find just what you need.
Travel to Spain on Orlando Avenue. The finest restaurant featuring cuisine from Spain is open for business, lunch, and pleasure. El Bodegón, our very own 4-star restaurant, is open for business, lunch, and dinner. This is a true gem when it comes to real Spanish cuisine, featuring dishes like paella. El Bodegón also has a great wine selection. Enjoy a 4-star cuisine from Spain today for lunch or dinner at El Bodegón.
My universe is everything I imagine. I want to be a graphic designer. How can I get there? The Academy. It fits my busy lifestyle, and I can learn firsthand from instructors who've been there and know what it takes. Hey, my destiny is a career doing what I love, my way. My choice, my school. The International Academy of Design and Technology.
You imagine? We can get you there. Call 1-800-932-2900. 1-800-932-2900.
Hi, I'm Danny Ramos, and welcome to this week's edition of Hispanic Speak Out TV, brought to you every week on Bright House Cable, Channel 49 at 9:30 p.m. We'll start off the show. What our new approach will be to have a quote from a famous person. And last week we had a famous quote from Martin Luther King, and this week we're going to have a quote from Booker T. Washington. And the quote is, "Few things can help an individual more than to place responsibility on him and let him know that you trust him." And with that, we'll talk a little bit about Washington, and just a reminder that your Department of Parks in Washington, D.C. is now $9 billion in the red, and they just appropriated an additional $50 million to a park in the Virgin Islands that is privately owned. There go your tax dollars. Also, 1 out of 5 homes in Florida are underwater. What does that mean? That means that count 5 houses in your neighborhood, and that guy owes more on that house than it's actually worth. And 1 out of every 143 houses in your neighborhood are in foreclosure. Great news for a great economy that everybody says is turning around. It's not turning around for the people who are in those homes. I'm here with Nicole Alvarez. Hi, Nicole. How are you today?
Good,
and now let's go.
Well, we're here with Doug Guetzloe, and he is on a radio station called the Guetzloe Report, and it's on every day at 8 a.m. WEUS, and you've been on for 10 years.
Right.
That's amazing. You are a very outspoken figure in Orlando, and you have a track record for being extremely vocal on issues that you agree
I
and
plead
disagree
guilty.
on.
That's all true. That is all true.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What's your view on Buddy Dyer and his mayoral administration?
It's really it's an unfortunate story that began in 2003 when, of course, Mayor Hood resigned to become Secretary of State, and there was a special election. And Buddy Dyer just lost the election for Attorney General of the state of Florida, and so he decided, being a professional politician, he'd run for mayor. And unfortunately, he had very little really talent or skills for managing, no experience whatsoever, and quite frankly, it shows today. What we've seen is an administration in Orlando that has become increasingly out of touch with our citizens and taxpayers, increasingly corrupt. There was a grand jury report about a year ago about the culture of corruption in Orlando, and it dealt primarily with some of the contributions and expenditures that have been going on with the expressway. But it really overflows into all areas of government, including Buddy Dyer. And that grand jury report actually indicated that the culture of corruption, a lot of it had manifested itself during what was called a Mobility 2020 campaign, the Crotty Transportation Plan. That's when Buddy Dyer and Rich Crotty went out and basically had a list of every one of the contractors of the city and the expressway, and they shook them down for money.
Really?
And they got contribution. They got $2 million in contributions for that campaign, and they literally had a list. It showed up in the grand jury report of all the contracts from the East-West Expressway, the City of Orlando, and how much the contracts were worth, and that was their hit list of who they called for contributions. Wow. And they said, you will pay, and you will not be able to play unless you pay. Pay to play. So we've really got, and unfortunately, except for shows like the show you have and my show and some other shows, there really is no hue and cry from the public because of these issues, because the Orlando Sentinel and the local TV stations are really, they're in bed with the downtown establishment. And they will not, they won't rock the boat.
Why is a newspaper, which is supposed to represent freedom of the press, why are they in bed with the downtown crew, as you say?
That's a great question. I get it all the time, because they're really literally part of the downtown establishment.
Do they make money from them?
Absolutely.
Is there a system of money going in that direction?
Absolutely. Not only do you have the advertising revenue from, like, well, the Orlando Magic. The Orlando Sentinel strongly supported building a $500 million arena for a multi-billionaire.
Yes, let's talk about the new stadium.
Why would you do that? You know, why would you do that? Why would you spend tax dollars for a play toy for a multi-billionaire like Rich DeVos? And, you know, I think the Magic, it's nice to have them in town, and then every now and then they do a good job, but why should taxpayers pay for that? Why shouldn't the people that are involved in the process pay for that? Taxpayers have enough problems right now. The only thing we really want in this community that I can tell is we want safe streets. We want schools that will teach our children. We want to be able to call 911 and actually have a police officer arrive faster than a pizza. And 911, by the way, is government-sponsored dollar prayer.
That's hard to do, by the way, because, you know...
It's very hard to do in this town.
Pizzas, you know, they guarantee...
Pizza's there.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's there.
But you really literally can get a pizza faster.
One day. Let's call both and see which one comes
See what
fast.
comes
They'll put
first.
us in jail for calling.
Well, I tell people
that it was your idea.
I've told people who've had this problem, you know, if you have a problem in the house, call the fire department. Call 911 and say there's a fire, because they have to respond within 4 to 5 minutes.
Now, you're talking about Orlando.
City of Orlando and even Orange County, but mainly the City of Orlando. So citizens are really interested in necessities, and they want priorities that are actually needs and not wants. The problem is we have an administration now, Buddy Dyer, that is, it's almost reminds you of the power and the rarity of ancient Rome. You know, we're going to have marble streets and big coliseums, and he always talks about having a world-class community. Well, in my neighborhood, we just like to know the garbage is being picked up on time, the police are going to respond, and our kids will actually learn something when they go to school. That's where tax dollars are supposed to go, not to arenas, not to Citrus Bowls, not to performing arts centers, and certainly not to commuter rail systems that are using 150-year-old technology with billion-dollar price tags. I'm sorry.
No. Before you go to the commuter rail, talk a little bit more about the stadium. You were telling me last week that it was the one that we have now used to be a church.
Where the arena is now.
Where the arena is now.
And you had suggested we should have built the arena out at
the
International Drive.
Center, near the
and
convention center.
unbeknownst to you,
right.
That's exactly where the original plan was, that it was going to be built as part of the convention center and was not going to be in downtown Orlando. Now then Mayor Frederick in 1988 decided he would move the arena from the planned expansion of the convention center out on I Drive to a downtown spot, because he wanted it downtown because downtown was dying. Downtown is still dying. But anyway.
And I'm sure he lived near downtown, and it probably
College Park, yeah, absolutely.
helped him a lot.
Well, it really did. And what was unfair about it, and was very unfortunate about it, is it was right where the arena was I mean, it's called the historic Paramore Callahan area, and there were about 500 homes of African Americans, and also the oldest African American church in the state of Florida. Now, the elders and the ministers and all the congregation asked Frederick, and that's actually exactly where the arena is right now. Right in the middle of Center Court was where that church was. They asked him to please let them raise some money and move the church, and he said absolutely not, and sent the bulldozers in. And what's really interesting is 10 years after the arena was opened, and by the way, we're still paying on it. Today, we have not yet paid off that arena, the old arena, the current Amway Arena. And yet we're building a new one for $500 million. But 10 years after Mayor Frederick had built that arena, he was asked by a reporter in the Orlando Sentinel, the original projection was $61 million. It ended up being $110 million, and we still haven't paid for it. And what do you say to that? And you know what his answer was? Who cares?
Really?
That was it. Who cares? And unfortunately, he's been right. Now, this year, a lot more people care than have ever cared before. People are finally awakening. But he said, who cares, to the Orlando Sentinel, and he was right. He wasn't being condemned for it. He was like, who cares? I can do what I want to do.
Wow.
That kind of attitude is what has made our Axe the Tax efforts and some of our different citizen campaigns very popular.
Which you're the chairman of.
I'm the chairman and founder of that. I started that in 1982 when I was a young Republican, and back when we all had money during the second year of the Reagan administration. And we've been very successful. We've helped taxpayers defeat $32.5 billion in tax increases in 14 successful battles. And we've been outspent, outmaneuvered, outgunned, out-endorsed the Sentinel for it every time, and we've beat them every time but one.
Now go back to your commuter rail.
Commuter rail is a boondoggle. It's a disaster. Anytime you have a fixed rail system going from point A to point B, and at this point A is DeBerry in Volusia County, and the end route is Point Siena down in Osceola County. It is just planned obsolescence. And everyone knows where the rail is. We're talking about the existing CSX freight tracks that cut right through, cut Seminole in half, cut Orange County in half, and go on into Osceola County. And their own projections show about 3,500 people in 10 years might ride a train that's going to cost us $2.6 billion to build. Wow. And it will operate, at this point, the projection is it will operate at $90 million a year in the hole just for operation and maintenance. Only government can come up with this. You know that a government committee is what came up with the camel. You know, it was meant to be a horse, and now they came up with a camel.
Where's that $90 million going to come from every year?
Your pocket.
Not my pocket. I'll find a way.
What they'll do is they're talking about.
I'll find a way.
They'll increase gas taxes.
Yeah.
They'll increase gas taxes. They'll increase property taxes. They're going to increase sales. They're going to have to. Government right now is already stretched thin because, quite frankly, they've overspent in the last 10 years. In the last 10 years, municipal government and county government in the state of Florida increased their revenue 100%. And they rode the real estate bubble all the way to the top. And when the bubble burst, they're still left with existing programs and everything they added over the last 10 years. Now they can't pay for it. So they're saying, oh, we need to cut police, fire, and all that. What they need to do is cut the bureaucracy. About 30% of government, I think, could easily be trimmed away without any loss of any kind of services to citizens in this community. It's really a matter of priorities.
And the spending that they're doing on things that aren't necessary.
That's exactly right.
To basic services.
That's exactly right.
I could see one going from Orlando to Miami, straight shot.
A bullet train.
Something like that, but that's...
Well, even that would cost,
that's
estimated to cost $55 billion.
Really?
And we don't have $55 billion. Right. And if we did, if it were at all to be profitable, a private enterprise would come along and say, yeah, we'll do that. What we've proposed, which is a little bit different, is to establish a Florida Autobahn and to build an actual road that would have limited access and would have unlimited speed, no speed limit, just like in Germany. Go from Tampa to Orlando, Jacksonville, Miami, and take your car, go 120 miles an hour. The Autobahn has the least accidents of any road in the world.
Does it really?
Figure that out.
Okay. That's interesting.
That is interesting.
What do you think about Crotty? You know, there was talk about Crotty running against Al Grayson.
That's frightening.
It's scary to you?
It's scary to me that Rich Crotty should even be in public office. What you've seen in that last that grand jury.
How do they get away with it?
Well, again, we have a paper that's asleep at the switch or in bed with Dyer and Crotty and all these guys. You've got a lackluster politician that basically has never gone out on a limb for anything. And when you go out and you ask people, what do you think about Rich Crotty? They go, oh, yeah, I know Rich Crotty. Ask someone, what do you think about when you think of Rich Crotty? What program? Has he cut taxes? Has he helped school kids? Has he brought better roads? What do you think about? Everyone's like, I don't know. There's nothing there. 33 years in public office, and no one could come up with one thing they think about except for the grand jury report that came out last year that identified him as the king of the culture of corruption, which was basically squeezing contractors to contribute to his political causes. But even then, when they have a grand jury report that says that, Lawson Lamar doesn't indict him, just slaps him on the wrist and sends out what's called a presentment, a little piece of paper that isn't worth the printing on it.
What was that this whole hoopla about a year and a half ago, about $100,000 having to do with karate?
The land deal is $110,000. He invested with a group of investors. Him personally, with the land deal, put $100,000 in it, into this investment scheme, and 1 year later received $110,000 back plus his principal. He got a check back for $210,000, and that particular investment group brought about 10 projects before the Orange County Commission during that period of time. All were approved by Mr. Crotty and the County Commission, and they said, well, that wasn't a conflict of interest because he had actually invested the money with them in a group in Palm Beach County. That's just playing. That's semantics. It's playing game. It's a culture of corruption. It's a shell game. You're exactly right. It's a shell game, and it's a pay-to-play situation. And then Crotty said that he got the tip from his church Bible study. Well, I'd like to be in that Bible study group. You know, put up $100 grand and get back $210,000 in 12 months. You know, we're lucky to get what 2 or 3% on our money if we can. You know,
1.5 in an account.
He gets 110% back return. That's not bad.
That's not
I'm
bad
sure
at
we
all.
could all do that. I'm sure they want to offer that to you and me. I mean, we just haven't had the opportunity yet.
Well, who do you think can withstand the campaign against Alan Grayson on the Republican side? Is there somebody out there who can do that?
Not right now. There's probably about a dozen people that are seeking the opportunity to go up against Alan Grayson. The interesting part about Grayson is that, of course, obviously he's highly controversial. He said some really outrageous things. But then, if you look at his voting record, very unusual, he voted against all the bailouts. He did vote against every one of the bailouts.
That's surprising. I didn't know that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If you look at his actual record, if you get past all the you know, dogma and all the hyperbole, he voted against the bailouts. He voted to not increase the national debt every time it's come up, against his Democratic patrons. He's grilled Bernanke of the Fed, said, "Where's the money?" You know, and Bernanke was like, "I don't know." Very unusual for a Democrat, but only a freshman Democrat could really do this, because all the guys that are up there, and you all know politics, you know, the ones that have been there for a while, they're all part of the system. They're not going to grill someone like Chairman of the Fed, Ben Bernanke, but Grayson grills him, and then he sponsored the bill with Ron Paul to audit the Fed for the first time in its 100-year-old history. And so you've got, it's sort of quirky, you got these outlandish statements against Republican leadership, and then you've got some votes that are as conservative, if not more conservative, than Republican votes. So I think it's going to be tough to beat Alan Grayson, because he's got $62.5 million in his own bank account. He's raised like $2 million. And the Republicans haven't yet come up with a candidate that everyone can get behind, and the Republican primary is the last week in August. So by the time the Republicans pick a candidate, they've got 5 weeks to the election. That's tough. I mean, politically, that's tough to do. So I think that in spite of everything Alan Grayson has said and done and has outraged so many people, and some of the things he said have outraged me, but the bottom line is, I think he's going to prevail because there's a lack of coordinated opposition behind him. And quite frankly, the Republicans have not been that good on, they spent money out, you know, like a drunken sailor. And they have lost a lot of Republicans that used to, I mean, I'm a Reagan Republican. And the Republicans of the last 10 years have spent more money than the Democrats. So it's tough for the party to get its feet back.
Not only that, but according to what you said, he's voted middle of the road, if not conservative.
On economic issues, he's actually pretty conservative.
Maybe that comes from his business background.
Could be, because he's a very, very successful businessman. I mean, he's a Harvard MBA. He's also a Harvard Law School. But you know, he got through Harvard Law by cleaning toilets. There aren't many people at Harvard that get through Harvard Law that way. Most of them jet in and, you know, daddy pays the bill.
Good Will Hunting movie.
Yeah, exactly. But he, you know, he has worked hard. So I have a sort of, as you can tell, I have a sort of grudging respect for him.
Yeah.
I don't agree with him on about 3/4 of his votes, but I think it's going to be tough to beat him. I think it would be good to have a nice fiscal conservative in that seat, but I don't see any of the Republicans that are currently running that are going to be able to fill that bill.
Yeah. You were charged with a crime, or you were charged by, tell us about that.
I was charged with a misdemeanor, the same level as if you parked on a yellow stripe in downtown Orlando.
Right.
And I'm the first person and the only person in the state of Florida criminally charged with a political misdemeanor. No one else has ever been charged.
Was that word used, political misdemeanor, or is that?
No, they called it a first-degree misdemeanor. And Lawson Lamar, who has been a political antagonist of mine for almost 20 years, basically targeted me for elimination because of what I've done with Axe Attacks and other things. And by the way, I was warned about this. I mean, I was warned when I started Axe Attacks that I was making a career decision. I had my own company. I said, you're going to lose contract. People told me, you're going to lose contracts. You're going to have a bullseye on you. And I just said, well, it's the right thing to do. And I was too young and brash. And I said, okay, I'm going to do it anyway. But people warned me. People said that the downtown establishment and the state attorney and the other people, well, they will come after you. And I just thought that's ridiculous. This is America. No one accuses anything wrongdoing unless it's true, right? Well, I found out that's not the case. I was accused of not having a political disclaimer, which is the thing at the bottom of campaign brochures that says paid political advertisement paid for by Danny Ramos for governor. And
Wow.
I just threw that out. Yeah. So you don't put that on there. It's technically a misdemeanor. No one else in the state of Florida has ever been charged with it. So Lawson Lamar dusts off the statutes and charges me with that. Not only one count of misdemeanor, we actually did a mail out in the city of Winter Park.
You ruffled him. You really
Ruffled
ruffled
him.
him.
I ruffled his feathers big time because one of his best friends was running for mayor of Winter Park. And I sent out a police report where he had been charged when he was running for mayor. This guy's name was David Strong. He's no longer mayor. The voters threw him out. But he had been charged with assault on a neighbor. He invited his neighbor over, picked up a handful of dog feces, and spread it all over his face and neck. And he was charged with, I know this sound, I mean, this is a family show, so I have to use, the technical word for all this. The neighbor called the police, and Mr. Strong's response was something, the police, which I won't repeat, and he was arrested. He was charged with felony battery on another individual. Lawson Lamar let him basically buried the whole thing, withdrew the charge, said if you go to anger management class, you're okay. That's a felony, right? So I sent out this flyer that had the police report. It wasn't even a campaign flyer. It was just a police report. That's all it was. So he charged me with sending something out without the proper disclaimer on it, charged me with one misdemeanor, and then charged me with 14 misdemeanors because he found 14 people in the city of Winter Park that signed an affidavit saying they had received the mailer. And then in court, he said if I could charge Mr. Guetzloe with 5,000 counts, I would do that, and asked this court to put him in jail for 5,000 years. That's what the state attorney said.
Doesn't that worry you a little bit? That this guy
Yeah, it worries me that someone has that kind of power.
Do you live in Orlando, in the city limits of
Yeah,
Orlando?
city limits Orlando, and my number's in the book. But we fought him on it.
Yeah.
The District Court of Appeal overturned 13 of the 14 counts, left one standing, and then last August, Federal District Judge Stephen Mickle of Leon County threw the law out as unconstitutional.
And what about all the money you spent on your own defense?
$150,000 came out of my pocket.
And is that retrievable?
Not retrievable.
It's not retrievable.
You can't sue the state attorney
So
because
in
they're
other words,
protected.
if you don't have the money, if you didn't have the money to combat,
I would have gone to jail
You would have
because
gone to jail.
on that one count, they sentenced me to 60 days in jail, $8,500 in fines, and 3 years probation. Rapists and murderers don't get that.
Yeah, they don't get that.
That's ridiculous.
But because it was a political vendetta, that's
got
what they
targeted.
did. But we got it, we basically got it overturned. We got the whole law overturned, and now it's no longer on the books.
That's good.
Well, it looks like you've had an interesting life here in Orlando.
Yes, you have.
It's never dull.
It's I don't know, I had an interesting life in New York. I think that you've
I
got an
know.
equivalent interesting life here in Florida.
Your life might have been more interesting, but
Well,
we're trying to
we
catch
can
up.
have a beer and discuss that.
It's never a dull day
We
with
can have a couple
Danny.
of beers and talk about that, because I have some more stories too. Even a couple of war stories here in Orlando.
Well, the Chinese say, may you live an interesting life.
Well, I
And,
have. I think
yeah,
you have too.
I think we are.
You were getting back to when I was going through my interesting period here in Orlando, and I was challenging the status quo on
Right.
a particular situation, which was happening in City Hall, and I challenged corruption in City Hall. I was assaulted in a library on Colonial, and I put in a call to the police. Okay, it took them 43 minutes to show up, and when they showed up, they wanted to arrest me.
They wanted to charge you.
They
yeah.
wanted to charge me. And what had happened was the FDLE heard it on their radio, and they showed up.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So what happened was when when the police were ready to, they were trying to corner me, questioning me, the FDLE came and said, "That's an inappropriate question. Who are you?" I'm Lieutenant so-and-so FDLE, and they totally backed down.
I bet.
Because, and the guy told me, "We heard that you were, that you had put in a call. We just wanted to come down here to see what was going on." So if it wasn't for that, I would have been arrested,
right.
And I was the one who was assaulted. So, and it was 42 minutes for the police, but that was the old guard, the old,
sure.
That happened during the old guard. But those things go on.
Well, you and the show have rocked the boat, and we salute you for it.
Yeah. Listen, we only have 56 seconds left, 49 seconds, and I just want to thank you for coming on to the show.
My pleasure.
It's been educational. Keep up the battle, and your radio station is 8:10 a.m.
That's correct.
And when are you on every day?
11 till noon, Monday through Friday.
11 till noon, 8:10 a.m.
Every Monday
and
through
you
Friday.
have a website?
Yeah, Guetzloe.com.
Okay.
Just easy to spell.
Okay. We'll put it on the screen.
All right, there you
right
go.
Here, it's over here.
Let's spell it
Guetzloe.com.
correctly for people.
Okay. And if you're interested, we have a sponsor now called bidonmyauto.com. If you're interested in buying or selling a car, don't forget www.bidonmyauto.com. This is Danny Ramos on Hispanic Speak Out. If we are still on the air because of these conversations next week, come visit us on Bright House Cable Channel 49, because I'm sure these conversations will draw attention. We'll see you next week.
My universe is everything I imagine. I want to be a graphic designer. How can I get there? The Academy. It fits my busy lifestyle, and I can learn firsthand from instructors who've been there and know what it takes. Hey, my destiny is a career doing what I love, my way. My choice, my school. The International Academy of Design and Technology.
You imagine we can get you there. Call 1-800-932-2900. 1-800-932-2900.
Stop hunting. Start finding. Choose the AT&T Real Yellow Pages with complete ads and up-to-date local listings to find just what you need.
It's 4 o'clock. You want to dial in?
Yeah, these calls would go a lot better if we had an office.
This is our office.
This is your daughter's dorm room, Bob.
Listen, we have internet, telephone,
dorm
lounge. It's all free.
You could just do business at FedEx office. They've got Wi-Fi, workstations. A lot of them are open 24/7. It'll still save us an overhead.
Hey, baby. Here, give me sugar. Get a room.
Technically, this is her room.
Hello, we're on.
We understand. You want less overhead. FedEx office.